Todd and Rob in the afternoon.
Hey, afternoon delight.
With Todd and Rob. Oh, yeah.
Well, Rob, here we are. I am back in the rebuilt studio. How are you?
I'm doing all right, Todd. How are you?
I'm good in my well, those that cannot see behind or in front of me. I spent literally I got everything done, kind of wired up Friday. And then I literally spent all day Saturday, all day, and part of Sunday cleaning up, taking stuff I didn't need back to the storage units, sorting the assortment of, I've got big yellow tubs. Does anyone need a land cable?
You've got a bunch of extra stuff. I do too, so I get it.
I have big yellow tubs, land cables, SDI cables, power cables. I mean, I probably get enough power cables to power half the country, and just, the little plugs that go into stuff. So yeah, we're back. Studio's dialed. I think 90% dialed in. Still has some dark spots, but I don't know. It looks exactly the same for those that have.
Yeah, that's what I was going to comment, Todd. It doesn't look like you moved.
It doesn't look like I went anywhere, right? So
yeah.
So it is. There we go. It doesn't look like I moved. The only thing is the background's a little bit different. And the complaint I've had so far is it should have been uniform. But I'm like, no, that was the way it was designed, was to be,
Right.
polka dotted. Now,
Yeah, it's like me. I've got black and gray panels behind me on the wall, and it's more for looks than it is anything else.
Yeah. Originally, this was the panel that was directly in front of me. So when I had a wall, and there's no wall here anymore. When I had a wall, it was, that was what was in front of me. Of course, then I've got a TV here. So the only thing that really is different is all the furniture is the same. A few different camera angles. Stuff is a little bit positioned. Plus, I'm about a foot further from the back. So there's about 12 more inches. So when I go to this view, that's much wider, much, much wider of a view. And of course, I turn the camera this way for this show, and then I turn it back pointing towards the other monitors. But yeah, so be honest with you, I was afraid that I was going to have an issue with, hand reflex and everything else. But the first night I did the stream, there was only one channel up. The left channel was working, and I was scratching my head the whole show, and it just was a pan setting on the TriCaster. Your audio sounds pretty good coming in. When we first connected, you said I'm blasting you, so you had to turn me down. So from that, but the only other risk is the bandwidth. And for those of you that want to know how that's being structured, we're streaming on Starlink. So the outbound is going on Starlink, and I watched the weather. The weather today looked good. So if the weather's bad, I'll flip it so that we stream on my point-to-point. You are coming in on the point-to-point. So I kept the stream separate, and so everything in the house is wired at a gig. Of course, I have nowhere near that connectivity, but speed test done before the show. The only problem is going to be is when it's bad weather. Then all bets are off.
Yeah.
Yeah, it could go sideways.
So when you say point to point, how exactly does that work? Because I'm sure there's people that are watching this that had no idea what that is.
So there is a tower 30 feet outside this wall. The wall's about 15 feet from me. I'm in a 2,000 square foot lot, and the tower is 30 or 35 feet high, and at the top of that is an antenna that's pointing to another antenna 14 miles away. And that antenna plugs right into a modem. So it plugs right into my Ubiquity device, and it says, okay, I get an IP, blah, blah, blah. So it's a PoE device. So it's power over Ethernet. It powers the antenna. And then that basically touches another tower, and that's how the communication goes, is wirelessly. Now, in the summer, which we're in the middle of full greenery here, the connection will be worse because I'm shooting a little bit at some point, probably through treetops.
Oh.
Because it isn't exact. I can't see it. And if I stood on top of the tower and did my binoculars, and but in the winter, the signal gets better because the greenery goes away.
Right. Yeah, there's no leaves.
Yeah, there's not much leaves so right now my speed on that point-to-point connection through a company called DMCI was when we tested today was about 35 megs. Now that's down about 5 up, and it varies. And I'm sharing with all the neighbors that's on this. And then, of course, Starlink is usually good if there's no weather. But, there's no wired connection here. We're all using, I'm on the edge of this. So we'll see how it goes. So those of you that tune in live, if you're watching live today, and we're up lit and live, we're up on podcasting apps. We are up on YouTube, Facebook, and everywhere else that we normally are. So if you're watching live and the stream gets weird, not my fault. Done the best I can. We will have a master recording unless Rob goes, and freezes.
Well, it can certainly happen on my end too.
But you have
go ahead.
But you're wired. You have a much higher probability of staying online than I do.
But I have noticed I'm on Xfinity cable connection, and I've noticed it's been a little not as reliable as what you would expect.
Now I have one trick left up my sleeve. So the Starlink can fall over to the connection you're on. So if Starlink goes down, the way the thing is wired, it will fall over to the point-to-point.
The point-to-point.
If the point-to-point fails, there's no fallover yet. Now, this is a long shot. My sister, she's got the same setup as I do. She has Starlink, and she has point-to-point. Now, the point-to-point I cannot be on. She's a county clerk.
Mm-hmm.
So she's only allowed to have one machine connected to that wired. She does election stuff. So that network is off limits to me. I can't use that as a potential backup because that antenna is actually pointing to another tower. And I said, shit, if that was not restricted, I would make that the fallback to the fallback. Because I can do that the way I'm wired here now. But she has Starlink as well. So I said, well, if my Starlink goes down, your Starlink's going to go down because it's going to be the same situation. So all told, $240 a month to maintain this connectivity. Now, I was at the local fair and the company was there. I told the guy, I said, who do I have to bribe to bring fiber down my road? He said $70,000 a mile to bring fiber to my house.
Wow.
Now, do we have any benefactors to the new media show? Yeah, if it gets to that point, we'll just quit. Anyway.
Yeah, I think that's a glimpse of the challenges of what's been termed for many years the rural
broadband. Yeah,
right. Is just the cost of doing it is astronomical. I know that the U.S. government has created a multi-billion-dollar budget to bring internet connectivity.
I know all about that.
I don't know that they've really ever done it.
So the government paid Frontier.
Again,
did we freeze? I can hear you. Rob, I can hear you. Yeah, I could hear you talking, but you weren't moving.
Yeah.
Frontier was.
I think
go ahead.
Yeah, I think it's safe to say that the dream of ubiquitous internet access, fast internet access, has not really
No,
come to fruition
no.
for whatever reason.
There,
Yeah, it's usually money.
yeah. So Frontier was giving a big, massive pot of money, and
Yeah.
they were told to expand. They have spent none of that in this area. Zero. None of that money the government allocated to expand rural broadband was spent by Frontier. Billions, I mean, hundreds of millions of dollars, and they've not spent a penny of it because it costs $70,000 a mile to bring fiber down.
Mm.
So,
It
yet,
shouldn't cost that much. It shouldn't cost that much.
well, by the time you get permits and crossing roads and digging under trenches, I agree it shouldn't cost that much. But right of ways,
Yeah.
it is. And here's the challenge: is we spend all these billions of dollars sending money overseas, and yet I'm a mile and a half from a Spectrum connector. The last plug is a mile and a half from me.
Yeah.
And I offered to pay to have that line brought down the road. At the time, it was only $12,000, which I thought it was a great deal. And they told me I have to get 50% of the people on the road to sign up for Spectrum for a commitment of 2 years before we would bring it down, even though I paid for the cable. And I'm just like, you got to be kidding me.
Yeah.
So anyway, welcome to the New Media Show, everyone. We're talking
Right.
rural broadband.
Right. Well, it's an issue for still a lot of people out there that want to get access to online media. I think we're in an era where, the broadcast television and all that stuff is in decline, and getting access to the internet is kind of your pathway to information and work and all sorts of it's a critical component now, good or bad, depending on your opinion about it. But yeah, these kind of things impact podcasting too.
Yeah.
I mean, it's people can't get online, they can't get to your content.
So again, those that have connections, it's just kind of a given. You get pissed off when your service goes out for a couple of hours. But 2 years ago, we couldn't have done this. This is why I had this. That's why I had the office in the other town. Because when I first moved here, 15 megs up, 3 megs up, 15 down. That was it. That's all we had here.
That's not going to work.
Yeah,
you.
for 4 years. And then Starlink came. I got Starlink. And then just recently, as I was being evicted, or not really evicted, that's the wrong word, having my lease terminated, same thing, they upped the point-to-point speed. And it's just like, I better hang on. I better keep both these services. But as you just saw, you did, so anyway.
That could be on my side too.
Yeah,
So
who knows? And we're on Zoom.
it's hard to know.
Yeah, it's hard to say. I would suspect it's the connection. We'll see how we do over the whole show here. But hey, how about Patreon? How about Patreon telling all their creators, sorry, 30%. You're gonna get all the money you're getting via someone that signed up for Patreon via iOS. Is going to get 30. Apple's going to get 30% of your rev.
Yeah. I guess that's not an incentive to sign up through the iOS app.
So, here, if Patreon had a set and had some fortitude and was
Right.
strong, they would say, fine, cancel the app. And we will only do business via PWA and the web.
That's what people are going to wind up doing anyway now.
Well, it's very, very hard, Rob, to tell someone that is doing stuff on their phone.
That's true.
If you have someone that is consuming all their content on their phone, to go and say, we don't want you to do anything on the Patreon app. We don't want you to consume content on the Patreon app. We want you to come in and use a PWA, which most people, their eyes glaze over. So think of you, if you were a podcaster today, And you're now taking a 30% haircut.
Well, Todd, let's get really clear on what they're doing here, because it kind of says two things here. It says Apple will take 30% of all creator payments
Right.
on the iOS app.
Yep.
Apple is already taking 30% of all the creator payments, which is the payments made by the listener or the viewer, right? Through the app, right? So what this is Apple's going to take 30% of all creator payments. So if you set up an account on Patreon through the iOS app, that payment that you make to Patreon is going to have a deduction made before the money makes it to Patreon. So what's Patreon going to do? They're probably going to pass that cost on.
Well, what they're going to have to do is come to the website, cancel anything that you're doing through the app.
Yeah.
But again,
but if you're already signed up through the app, if you're already signed up through the app, then that means that Patreon's costs just went up.
And it was a little bit of a gray area Patreon was working on. So Apple's getting its cake and eating it too, and double whammy.
Yeah, I'm surprised that Apple wasn't taking 30%.
Well, that's
all creator payments up to this point.
That's why it was operating in this gray area.
Right.
Yeah. So build your, as I have learned firsthand, here we are. Here we are we're in my new space. Do not build your castle on rented land.
Yeah, and it's not the same topic, but there was some discussion on social media over the last couple of days about, the desire of many in the industry to get rid of the download again. Right. And it always revolves around primarily the same issue, and it's access to listener user data, right?
Yeah.
It's the same thing that Rad tried to do through NPR, is getting access to player data of sorts, right? And somehow the industry would like to shift to this concept of monetization that's gauged based on the attention that is obtained by the podcast, right? And what the engagement is of the audience as a metric,
right?
Versus using a download, which it seems like a lot of people are against really anything in regards to the download, because they think it's basically an empty box of data. There's just not enough data for what the expectations are. And my pushback to this whole discussion is, to some degree, is be careful what you wish for, because this plays into the narrative of the large proprietary platforms.
That's right.
And there was some pushback on that too, saying, well, that's not necessarily the case because all the big platforms currently support RSS. But what we have seen over the years is a gradual erosion and growth of perception, whether it be at all the proprietary platforms, of direct upload models starting to be deployed.
Yeah.
Right. And so, if you have fewer listening platforms, right, then it's a more viable option for each of these platforms to enable direct upload strategy, especially these big platforms that have basically acquired or purchased podcast host platforms, right? That's part of a strategy to have a direct upload relationship with content providers.
So
right, there's a danger here. And I was just calling it out, and people were, getting all spun up about this whole concept that well, we need better data in order to get better CPMs and to make more money.
That's been the story for everything.
It has been. this is not a new conversation.
Brand safety. Brand safety is going to help get higher CPMs. IB certification is going to help get better CPMs. GARM is, and we got to talk about GARM.
Oh yeah, well, I'm going to here. I got some stuff I want to pull up about it
because there is a house of cards around GARM.
It's already fallen. The whole
well, I know, but the fallen with two people. You know
that, and I'm sorry to say, but the damage has already been done with GARM. So just because the World Federation of Advertisers decided to close up shop because the water was getting a little too hot on that topic, doesn't mean that all the platforms that adopted GARM are still doing what they're doing.
That's right. Yeah. So let's go back to, so we've kind of covered 2 or 3 things here. We've talked about Patreon and the idiocy that's going on there.
Yeah.
And then this next topic, it just,
yeah, I know.
Someone, I can't say, I have to be careful. Back to Todd being careful. I made a comment in a Slack group, and someone was asking, "Oh, GARM is gone," and I said, "Good effing riddance."
Yeah. What?
And
there's a reason why it was very easy for them to shut them down.
Right. And I said, riddance of the 2 people and the shell game that was being played. Ha ha ha. Right. And then someone came back and said, "Oh, that's not going to change how we're going to do business. We're still not going to advertise on certain shows." And my response was, "You should divulge that. You should say, you, if you're using this," I said to the company, "you should disclose which shows and which episodes you have said are brand risk or whatever reason. You should disclose this to the community, to the podcaster, and let's just lay the cards where they lay." Woo, that didn't go over. That went over like a fart in church.
Well, Todd, there's a much deeper story to this.
I know.
The whole GARM thing was really kind of a face for the real platform that's behind this, and it's called NewsGuard.
Yeah.
And so you're gone, Todd.
I know. I put you front screen.
Oh, you did? Okay.
Yeah.
So this is the actual company that's behind what GARM was all about. This is the actual company here. It's at newsguardtech.com. And as you can see on the front, it's all about tracking election misinformation and detecting misinformation. And so, and then creating a reality ratings for news outlets, right? So this is essentially the same thing as what GARM was being accused of, right?
Yep.
But this is the master platform for this whole initiative. That's why it was so easy for them to shut down GARM, was because this is still going.
Yeah, well, then Elon needs to sue them or whoever the masterminds, the group behind this. They should, you should go after them. Yeah, I just, it's the simple. I saw something on CNBC, and it was on a YouTube channel, and it was basically, you either love or hate Elon Musk at this point. But he was basically asked by CNBC, you say some stuff on your channel that makes people not want to own Teslas anymore. And he makes people nervous about advertising. And he paused. I mean, he paused for like an uncomfortable 30 seconds and kind of looked away. He was doing a recall. And again, I don't know
That's typical Elon, though.
you know, and he basically come back and referenced a movie, and it was like, gosh, I wish I could quote it. It was so classic, and then basically he was just basically saying, "Pack sand," and I'm being nice. I'm using nice words. I'm going to say what I want to say because it's my right to say what I say. And stuff that's
Right.
been deemed misinformation today has turned out to be real 3 months later. And he referenced the laptop, the Hunter laptop. We won't get into
Mhm.
politics here, but that was one
Right.
example, right? We have many, many more because of COVID and everything else. So
Right.
you have all these people that think they know best. They think they are God. They think they're
Yeah.
smarter than everyone. And they think that we, as consumers of content at large, don't know our ass from a hole in the ground and should
Mhm.
be basically treated as children. So I'm at a point
Yeah.
that if you're a podcaster and you're working with a company and monetization is the name of your game, and you say anything controversial, just like I did just a second ago, which would probably make this show brand unsafe, you need to consider who you're working with.
Yeah.
I don't do any third-party tracking. None. Zero. My partner that does host red ads doesn't either.
Yeah.
And guess what? It is the way it is.
Mm-hmm.
I at what point do everyone just, I guess those that are eating from the advertising, trough have to accept that, these executives think they know best about your content and what brands would, I'd rather have some content be a little bit on the edge, a little spicy.
Mm-hmm.
And if an advertiser comes in there and advertises with that tells me that brand really stands for something. And what does they stand for? Freedom of speech. And to me, that's pretty important, but I'm just Todd.
Yeah, Todd, I would say that there's not a lot of data or evidence that an advertiser advertising on a show that's considered to be brand unsafe has any significant reduction in ROI. So there isn't a lot of solid data behind this practice of using these tools. And if you go to the NewsGuard website, they do have a area on the website that specifically refers to podcasting.
Oh.
So
Hey,
here I'll
Rob,
bring that up.
before you go there, I want to go back. We got an email. I got a text here on YouTube from Eileen. She says, "Hi, Rob and Todd. This is a quote from the email I got from Patreon, and I knew this was the case, so we failed to mention it. We want to be really clear about one thing. This will not impact your existing membership at all. Apple's App Store fee only applies to new membership purchased in the iOS App Store beginning in November 2024.
Okay, well, that's good to hear.
So it is good, but so this gives you from August 14th until November 1st to change your strategy on who you are talking to for new Patreons and people that renew that maybe their credit card went dead. But anyway, go ahead, Rob, on this podcast, quote unquote, reliability ratings.
Yeah, so this is on that same website that I just pulled up a minute ago, and it just points out what I was just saying is that the whole GARM discontinuation is just kind of like a
Smoke and mirrors.
front for this whole thing.
Yeah.
So this is actually the foundation of it, and I discovered this on their website, probably 6 or 8 months ago, and I wrote an article about this whole thing on my robgreenlee.com blog, just to let people know about what's happening here. It's really, podcasters need to understand what's really going on here. It's being portrayed in the industry as this opportunity for people to, get more advertising in their show because they've been evaluated and they're considered safe. But there is kind of a darker use side to this, and I do think that there is a risk, and we may be seeing it happen, and we just don't know it yet. But this same technology could be applied to the listening platforms, as well,
and
right?
of course,
so not just to the advertising side of things.
Rob, hey, you should see the emails I get from the big S. You should see the emails I get, and we get the email says that this episode has been removed because of blah blah blah, and we go listen to the episode, and I am astounded by the number of episodes that get removed over there, and I'm like, this is not safe for your platform. And when we inform the podcaster and say, hey, they have taken this episode down or they have suppressed it in search, we tell them what they've told us. And nary a podcaster that is, and we get these weekly, nary a podcaster that we inform ever does anything. Why? Why don't they call them out? Why don't they scream? I'd scream bloody murder if our show showed up on a list. Now, I had our writers over at Podcaster News. I asked them to write an article on podcasting and RSS and the importance of RSS feeds. And the reason I asked this is because more and more we're getting people on the phone that are migrating to Blueberry from other hosting platforms. And we ask them, what is your RSS feed? And they go, what is that? I don't understand. I don't know what you're talking about. Or consultants that don't know what the RSS feed of a podcast is. And this article says, an evolving landscape of podcasting, one technology remains a constant linchpin, RSS. Despite its pivotal role, a growing number of podcasters and their teams lack a fundamental understanding of RSS and its significance. The knowledge gap presents risks that could impact the openness and accessibility of podcasting itself. Going back to what you said here a little while ago about these platforms wanting to go to streaming, want to abolish the download, it's this ongoing suppression of information. How can it be a podcaster that is creating content does not know his RSS feed does what it does today? This is an existential threat to podcasting. And it's coming from people from Spotify and a few other platforms that
it's been going on for years now. It's just been this kind of undercurrent in the industry that it just happens a little bit at a time and a little bit at a time, and people raise red flags like us, and it's like then people kind of crash on top of us and say, oh, that's old curmudgeon talk about podcasting.
They're not talking to podcasters every day like we are.
Right.
This is not Todd just doom and gloom. This is me looking in the rant channel on Blueberry's Slack channel, and the team going, I got another one. Doesn't know what their feed is.
And all these topics are somewhat related to each other.
Yeah.
And part of a larger move in the industry towards the domination by proprietary platforms.
That's right.
And that's what the fundamental struggle is of podcasting 2.0 is fighting back against that.
Absolutely.
And giving this concept of innovation into the open standard. Right?
I'm just going to call a spade a spade. Rob and Elsie over at the feed, and Rob Walsh's complete lack of even wanting to consider podcasting 2.0 and the benefits of that, and poo-pooing it. Libsyn has made their bed, and obviously they lost their CEO. He left. So there's absolute chaos over there. So this concept of we're not going to do any of that stuff because it's just for 5%. Well, in the end, getting in bed with the devil, being a couple of these companies that are doing what they're doing, it could be the end of the industry.
Well, I guess, and it's not so much that they're the devil in some way.
I'm not saying that. Okay,
right,
I'm not referring to Libsyn. I'm referring to third parties.
No, but I know that Libsyn has been very vocal over the years around its privacy positions.
Yeah.
Its
Well,
positions on
not lately.
censorship. Well, I think those values still exist. I mean,
they do.
I've talked to them, and they do feel pretty strongly about it. But I do think that there is this tension in the industry that is coming in around these new concepts, and it's being driven through the advertising side.
Yeah.
And but what a lot of people don't realize when they look at the big picture of these topics is that the advertising side is like 10% of the market.
Right.
So as far as total numbers of podcasters, right?
Yeah.
And so you're kind of shaping the industry based on a small set of content creators that are trying to do whatever they can to cater to the advertiser.
Yeah.
Right. And this is the same kind of ideology that came out of broadcast radio. So in some ways, like I used to work at Podcast One, I admit it, for a year, and that was a company that had its roots in broadcast commercial syndicated radio, right? And just about everything that we did at that company was focused on the advertiser, what the advertiser wanted, right? At the end of the day, that company really caters to advertisers. That's who their customer is. The listener is the product,
Right.
not the customer.
Well, and that's the way it is at Spotify. The listener is the product.
And that's the ideology that's coming into podcasting increasingly. And if we see that fully develop like it did in broadcast radio, then podcasting is going to be just like broadcast radio, right?
Yeah.
And do we want that? Do we want over commercialization? Do we want high ad loads? I don't think the industry really wants that. And I do think that there's a recognition that ad loads at 16 minutes an hour is just not a sustainable model for the podcast side of things. But I do think that these larger media companies would like to get back there again, because it means that they've been able to recover their revenue that came out of the commercial radio side.
So this year, for the podcast awards, record number of shows didn't enter the RSS feed when they registered.
Yeah, so we're starting to see a shift away from RSS, and those out there that kind of shoot me down on that are kind of not really looking at the kind of arc of this over the last 10 years.
Of the 300 entries, how many do you think didn't put their RSS feed when they registered, that I had to go back and say, give me your RSS feed? And I forced them to I could have looked it up, but I forced them to send me an email with their RSS feed. How many do you think? There was over 100 that made the slate that didn't enter their RSS feed. And then I had some that said, I don't have an RSS feed. And I'm like,
they probably don't even know where to get it.
And then I went on, I said, well, you're on Apple Podcasts, so you have to have an RSS feed to be on Apple Podcasts. And I looked it up and I sent it over to them. Guess where everyone that didn't know they had an RSS feed, what platform do you think they were on?
Spotify.
Megaphone.
Oh, well, that is Spotify.
Spotify.
Yeah.
So I'm just seeing stuff. And
it is true also on a lot of the larger podcast hosting platforms. It's not easy to find your RSS feed URL in the interface.
And it doesn't help that some podcasting companies give you 10 RSS feeds, one for each destination, but we'll leave it at that. There's another juicy one over on Podcaster News. Why podcasters should think twice before trusting Spotify. So it's a very enlightening read. I think people should go over there and read that. Take your time and go through that and make a comment on it, please.
Mm-hmm.
So, all we can do here is fight fire with fire at this point. And like Mike says in the chat, without RSS, free and open podcasting is dead.
Well, it becomes a market of proprietary platforms.
Right. Gatekeepers.
Right. Like YouTube.
Yeah, gatekeeper.
Example.
Yeah.
But the issue that was being discussed in this thread online was having an aggregation of player data back to, let's say, a Blueberry or a Lipson or whatever. And I guess YouTube has been the only large proprietary platform that has enabled like an API shareback, but not everybody's adopted it, or not everyone has got access.
Be careful what you wish for on that data.
Right. Well, I mean, it's not based on the same, IDB v2.2 compliant data. It's based on YouTube's criteria. I'm not sure if they're compliant with the IAB on the audio side. They may be, but I don't know offhand. I did see that Podscribe is now 2.2 compliant, which isn't Podscribe, is that owned by Spotify too?
I don't know. Yeah, we're going through our recertification right now.
Yeah. And on a kind of not a direct related topic, but I do know that we've talked about in prior episodes, we've talked about revenue growth on the advertising side and podcasting, and how, we're constantly making projections about, we're going to be at $4 billion and next year and all this stuff. And it's been 5 years that they've been saying that.
Yep.
I did see that iHeart put out their financial report Q2 2024 showing that podcast revenue, so this is a positive thing, I suppose, if you want to look at it that way, was up 8.1% year over year, but its growth is slowing. So this is another thing like we were talking about, is that the projections and what has happened in the past, the growth is slowing. And but Bob Pittman said that, and this is what every CEO says, is that, well, next quarter we're going to be up double digits, right? And that's exactly what these forecast reports are saying too, is 12% growth, right? But it's actually coming in at 8%, which I guess, given the market and the economy, 8% growth is, I guess, could be considered good news.
Well, Rob, I must apologize to those who've been living live and lit today. On the audio stream, only you can hear me. For some reason, you can't hear Rob. It must be another pot turned down. I can probably fix it, but I'm not going to jump up at this point and do it. So
okay,
it's no wonder we're not getting any boost, because they can't hear you.
Yeah. Okay. There you go.
I missed one setting. Damn it.
Well, I guess you need to go watch this on one of the big, large proprietary platforms like YouTube.
We'll go to newmediashow.com and,
well, you can do that too.
Get we'll have audio and video again back on the, on the show too. So, but, I don't know. I don't want to be this doom and gloom guy.
I don't either, but these are the facts. These are what is actually happening. I mean, we can all put, roses on the table and make it look good or whatever, or we can really be honest about this and really see what's happening. And as an industry, we do have power to do things if we want to change here.
Yeah.
So it's like a lot of things that are happening in our world right now. We have big choices ahead of us around the direction that we want to go with our country, our nation, our planet, our earth, all sorts of stuff. And not everyone agrees on what that path forward is. But I think the big thing is that we all need to be able to share ideas and talk about this stuff, so we do make the right decisions here and not get maybe bamboozled into something that we don't really want.
Well, we did get 1,776 sats from Martin. He says, "Hey, Todd, I hear you, but not Rob. But maybe you haven't started yet." Liberty Boost, 1776, Martin Lineskog. You know, if I'd have read this earlier, I'd have known that. So, Martin, it's Todd's problem. He screwed it up. 1,701 sats from Mike Dell. "Welcome back to the studio. Garm, death is good."
Garm, death is good. Wow.
So anyway, yeah, that was my big shoot the shot thing. Thinking about this past week. What else is on your list, Rob? I know you have some other things.
Well, I think those were the big things. Oh yeah, I did want to talk about this audio audit that I saw pop up in the Pod News newsletter. Thank you, James Cridlin, which I will be seeing him and you at Podcast Movement next week. So I'm excited to go back. So I continue my streak of being at every main Podcast Movement event since the very first.
Don't eat me, James Cridland.
Right, exactly. But anyway, to kind of move forward with this audio audit company, it's basically, I don't know how new the company is, but it gives your podcast a score for audio quality and shows how you can improve. Now, I guess it has a tool that, it talks about all sorts of little aspects of your podcast, and I can actually pull it up.
And what's interesting is we are using Auphonic to master our media. So curious here that they said that we were too loud, considering we are using the podcast spec, my team 16 LUFS.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I was going to pull this up here, trying to see if
you can find it.
Yeah, hang on here. Oh yeah, here it is. Okay.
Wow.
So I submitted the new media show to the platform, and it's really easy to do that. All you do is just type in the name of the show on the screen of the website. It's called audioaudit.io, and so it'll basically pull in your most recent episode. I think on the free plan. I'm not on a paid plan, but this is what comes back with your episode, and it basically has the sound in front of you that you can play, and there's little bars, vertical bars that mark various places in the audio that they've identified as possible issues. So this last episode with Chris Krimitsos got a 9 out of 17 for a 52% evaluation.
Oh.
And so
who are they? How do they know audio?
I don't know.
That's exactly the issue.
Right. So they came back with these warnings or pass. So it basically goes through a whole list of factors.
No one's putting metadata in. No one's putting cover images again. Chapters, those are externally supported now. They don't know what the hell they're doing.
Yeah. And then I guess, Todd, our bit rate passed.
Of course it did.
The number of channels, which I'm not exactly sure what that means.
No clue.
Is that mono versus stereo?
We're doing mono.
Right. And then sample rate passed, sample width passed. So that must be like a normalization score. That's what that might be. And then loudness passed. Peak volume, there's a warning. And it looks like noise floor passed. Quiet channel passed. I'm not sure what quiet channel is. Silence at the beginning, warning.
Yeah, because there's none.
Yeah, right. And silence at the end, we passed. So silence in the middle, we passed. Restarted sentences. I'm not sure if that's like a word, kind of saying a word over and over again, or a sentence over. I'm not quite sure what that means. And then this was a big flag to me, is profanity and swearing. So it has a content safety
No,
mechanism in here, and I guess we passed, Todd. I guess
we're not going to pass on this one.
unwanted noises. There was a warning.
Oh. Well, here's the thing, and I just brought you back from full screen.
Okay.
The simple fact that they're saying you need metadata, you need chapters, you need images means they don't have a clue on what's happening in modern podcast apps.
Mm-hmm.
Nary a clue. The image isn't picked up by anybody. That was something that left over from 2004. Putting metadata, the only thing that's in metadata in most audio file now is ad insertion markers. No one's putting metadata in audio files no more with, episode number, title, and none of that stuff. The simple fact that they have those first three in there means that they don't know what they're doing. They're using some old spec. And the rest of the stuff I don't know, but and I'm going to pay for this? Yeah, whatever. I can build one of these.
Yeah, and it doesn't, it does offer a breakdown description for each one of these things if you click on it. I didn't actually click on it. And it does appear to be incorrect because it is claiming that there is no cover image.
Yeah, there isn't. We don't have a cover image in our. No, we don't.
Well, but we do have episode cover art.
But
right?
that's separate. That's not put in the metadata of the audio file. That's in the RSS feed.
Right. Okay. So they're evaluating. It's not clear on this.
Yeah, they want.
Right. It does say, was it included in the audio file?
Yeah,
right.
That's stupid.
And there's no reason to do that.
No, not anymore.
So they're basing their whole service on incorrect.
Yeah, absolutely. They don't know podcasting.
Out of date data.
Yeah, out of date. Those first three things are out of date. And of course, you can have Apple chapters in metadata if you so choose to do that.
Oh, and it's saying that it's wrong if your audio file is not in stereo, which I would say is incorrect.
Incorrect.
Well. Right. There's no reason why an audio podcast like this has to be in stereo.
No, we're not doing some soundscape or anything like that.
Yeah, I mean it's not even stereo when it's recorded. So why would you put it out as stereo? It's just a waste of bandwidth. Is what it is.
I record in stereo, but I publish in mono.
Yeah, and it's going to be mostly the same audio on both tracks. Anyway.
Yeah, same thing. You're just wasting file size.
Right. Totally. And it says here, okay, so 44.1 was detected. So, and then sample width is that? Oh, okay. 16-bit.
16-bit.
So I guess we passed on that. Loudness. Okay. So peak volume. So it came up here, said it detected a 0.57 dB at some point in the content. So.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Noise floor pass. Okay. Silence at the beginning. Let's see what it says. Not enough silence was found at the beginning at the start of the track.
Why?
Less than 0.5 seconds.
Oh, great. We saved everyone 0.5 seconds of listening time.
So whose judgment?
It's whoever these guys, what does it say about who's doing this? And they expect people to pay for this? Come on.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know that you have to be have a certain amount of silence at the beginning.
No.
I mean, I tend to put a little bit of silence at the beginning or a fade up at the beginning, but I don't think you have to have a lot of that.
Chop, chop. I'm done.
Right. Restarted sentences. We think we detected a section of speech that may have been restarted. So they're not sure. They suspect. We think we detected.
Being that we didn't edit the audio, there's no overlap.
Right.
Tis what it is.
Unwanted noises. Okay, let's see what this is. It says it detected 6 unwanted noises in the audio.
Maybe it was Chris was outside. Maybe the crickets or something that we were hearing.
Yeah, it lists an animal, a bird, two birds,
Yeah.
and a throat clearing,
Oh, probably.
and a zip, and some sort of a zip. So I don't know if we zipped up our shirt or something like that during the production.
Oh, well, that's funny.
Yeah. So, and then it also creates a transcript, which looks like is incorrect. So, anyway,
Yeah. Okay.
it's a company in progress, I guess. Might be the takeaway.
I'm sure they'll be at Podcast Movement and coming around and selling their wares. You know, I have gotten AI is going to be the thing at Podcast Movement. I've probably gotten 10 emails, and I'm sending responses like we're building our own AI. We're not doing any integrations. Happy to talk to you about what you're doing. You want to come show me demo? Great. That's not going over well.
Yeah, I would imagine.
Yeah.
not.
How did you build your own AI? Not that complicated.
Okay, so I'm on their website.
Oh, we're going to give them more credit, Rob?
No, I'm just trying to see how, who these folks are.
Oh, okay.
I guess they're based out of the UK. So,
All right. Well, I hate to dog on you folks, but
yeah. Well, there might be a benefit here
yeah.
if they can kind of get it more up to date with the standards in podcasting.
Right.
Yeah.
I don't know where
think
they
would
got.
be-
I don't know where they got some of their information. That's for sure.
Yeah. So, anyway, is there anything new going on with Blueberry?
You know,
Yeah.
we're just busy. You know, busy. I'm in a stage of I'm calling it nitpicking stuff. So going through and see something and not quite liking its and how it functions or what it does, and just that kind of stuff we're going through. The team is busy building. We have a very major project that is underway. Our recertification is underway. We're having to build some things to make sure we meet all the bally wickets that they want for recertification, and just some normal stuff. And so we're giving away our Thrive package this month. So anyone that's a hosting customer with us can try all of our Thrive features. So the big challenge, here's the thing: when you have a big customer base and they're just off doing their own thing, and even though you have a email that you send and a newsletter and everything else, people call us and say, how come you don't have this? And we're like, we do. And they're like, really? And you're like, yeah, well, just, get on the screen share. And they're like, oh. So, it can be hard to, so we're working on educating the customers within the platform itself. Little pop-ups and notifications and it's just when you got such a big thing, it's not surprising that people don't fully know what's going on within the platform. So what about you? You got anything going on? What's new with you?
Just trying to get myself all pulled together and get myself ready to go to Podcast Movement. So, yeah. So I've been playing around with the app. I don't know if you've been playing around with it much. And
which app?
The Podcast Movement app.
Oh yeah, I've been getting lots of requests. I wish I could talk to someone without accepting something. It's hard to chat with people without accepting. Excuse me, wanting to do a meeting or something. So that's the only thing that really is annoying with the app.
Todd, I also noticed, I don't know if this is not new, but I guess it's new to me because I tried to do it, but I did notice that the Apple Podcast Connect website no longer works with Windows.
Huh? Oh, you must have. Are you using Safari?
On Windows?
Oh, I have no problem. It's just I use Chrome to get in.
That's what I just did, and it comes back saying this requires a device with iOS 17.
Huh?
Yeah, here I can actually.
You need to send that to Ted.
I've been talking to Ted about a different topic, but here, let me show it to you.
So you can't log into Podcast Connect?
Not off of a Windows 11 machine with Chrome. So it says
Oh,
right
that's
down
something
here.
weird.
So it says right down here, I can scroll in.
I see it. Wow, that's weird. That's
Can you
not
see
good.
that at the down here?
Yeah.
It says requires a device with iOS 17.
I've got a Windows machine sitting over here. I'm going to try it as soon as we get done. Well, that's odd. Hey, Mike, if you're listening, we need to test that. That's weird. Of course, a lot of my team members are on Macs.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
Still-
a problem. If it's saying
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, I had to access it. Yeah, I was trying to make a change to one of my podcasts that I have in Apple, and I was forced to go use my iPhone.
Yeah.
So if you're on Windows and using Android, I don't think you can work with Apple Podcast Connect anymore.
Mike says you can't log in with Mac and Chrome, so you have to use Safari?
On Windows?
No, on a Mac. You can't log in with Mac, having a Mac and using Chrome. That's bad news.
So they're basically making it a requirement that if you're a podcaster and you want to get your podcasts into Apple Podcast Connect, that you have to be on
This is that's unacceptable.
on a Apple device.
Yeah, and the majority of the non-modern world is on a Windows machine.
Yeah. So I don't know if this is just a mistake or
That's bad. That's really
Oh,
bad.
yeah. So I'll ask Ted about it.
Yeah. Randy's asking, what do you think the Rode, RODE, Mike, we're still seeing the screen, Rob. What do you think that Rode will do with Mackie for the long haul? What do you think that Rode will do with Mackie? Did Rode buy Mackie?
Yeah.
Oh, I missed that.
It's been a while now. My guess is they'll turn it into like it is, a more professional line of mixers.
Mike said, correction, it just did work for me again, Chrome Mac. So he was able to log in with Chrome and Mac.
But Windows is the question. It's
Yeah,
not
the
Mac.
Windows is the question, so we need to try a Windows machine. I didn't know that Rode had bought Mackie. That's interesting because, I've got a Mackie mixer over here with stuff that this thing can't do. It's got channel inserts. And the reason...
I have a Mackie mixer too that I probably should sell, but it's just,
you know,
it's just sitting in a box.
in order to do this show with the way we're doing it, I'm using a channel insert, and you're hearing me from a channel insert on it. Now, the Rode, we were doing stuff with the Rode too, being able to do the show this way as well. So just the way I'm wired here is different. So there's always going to be a need for big mixers.
Yeah, I agree.
Big professional for studios and stuff like that.
Yeah,
Definitely
I think
going to be a need.
That's what Mackie really excels at, is like the 12 channel
Right.
input, wide mixers.
Yeah.
Most podcasters don't need that.
No, when I was doing like going to CES and stuff like that, we would have 8, 9, 10 channels wired in with 10 different inputs and lots of spaghetti mix out. And, for a podcaster, you don't need that. The Rodecaster's fine. Why do I have mine wired here the way it is? Because I have this equipment. I don't have to buy anything new. That's the key here. That's the Welcome Beauty Bubble for taking your seat and joining the show. Another angle is to be reminding the Friedman Group is parent company of Rode. So I don't know much about the Friedman Group. I'm assuming they're out of Australia. Rode is out of Australia. Unless I don't know if the Friedman Group is. So I don't, Mackey's a major brand name. I wonder how much they spent to buy Mackey.
Well, they're based up in Seattle. Is where they're
Friedman
from.
is?
No, Mackey is.
Oh, Mackey. And Rhodes in Australia. I'm 99% sure.
Correct.
So, that's interesting. So I missed that bit of. It's been a while then, huh? So I missed that part of the news cycle that happened.
My guess is that they're going to take the Rode technology and integrate it into more Mackie professional mixers would be my guess.
So I laughed on an article over at Pod News that said, run your podcast ad too often and it won't work as well. That's according to the latest PodScribe Performance Benchmark Q2 2024.
Are you surprised, Todd? I'm not.
My tech show, Geek News Central, has been brought to you by GoDaddy for 1,700 episodes in a row for 19 years.
Yeah, how many ads for GoDaddy do you have in your podcast, Todd? That's the question.
1.
Okay, that's the answer.
That's not what they say here.
It's not?
Let me go back and find this here. I think I rolled off it. Run your podcast ad too often. What do they mean by too often?
Too frequently.
Does that mean multiple? Is it about in the same episode or multiple episodes in a row?
Correct. In the same episode.
Of course it's not going to work well.
Right. That's why I say it's not a revolutionary thought.
If I run my GoDaddy ad twice, I would have a revolt. There would be my audience would fall off a cliff. They would say, "Screw you, Todd. I don't want to. You already told us once." I didn't read that. I thought this was an assumption on my part that it was.
Yeah.
Okay.
Hey,
and
Todd,
also,
here's the Mackie website, and I think what you'll see is a lot of similarities to.
Oh yeah.
So I think if you look at the actual hardware devices that are catering to the live streaming market, like in podcasting market, they look a lot like a Rodecaster Pro, don't they?
That's interesting. Yeah. By the way, do you know what the ugly baby talk is, Rob?
Well, it's a common term to refer to starting out ugly, right? And
well, anytime I get an email from a podcaster that says I'm a 5% rated Listen Notes podcast.
Oh, there you go. Okay.
And I'm like,
I know where this is going.
Gotta have the ugly baby discussion.
Right.
Okay, let me do this.
Don't eat me, James Cridland.
Why are you reporting, James, on Listen Notes saying that July saw the lowest number of new podcasts this year? Their data, I tell people, disregard anything that company says about your show, because everyone's a 5% show. He says technically the number refers to new feeds. Many new podcasts have been launched on defunct feeds for shows that
especially if you happen to be putting out 2 episodes a week, you're probably in the 5% range, right? Yeah.
Right. So, anyway, Pocket Cast is going to add the ability to rate podcasts to the next on the next version. So there's that. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
It's just some of the stuff that's you can tell there's not a lot of news because there's been a lot of digging for stuff.
There's always
there was a
stuff
little
going on. Right.
tongue in cheek. Did you review this Hollywood Reporter, the most powerful people in podcasting in 2024?
Yeah, I saw this. Yeah. Yeah. Power.
The most powerful people.
There's always these lists that come out. I think the Inside Radio folks that's owned by iHeart actually puts out.
Yeah, they put out one too, right?
Top 40 list or something like that.
Rob, I think you and I should put out the most powerful, the new media show most powerful people in podcasting list.
Well, isn't that kind of what the Hall of Fame is, Todd?
Yeah. Hey, by the way, this again, and I think it was really this should have been your headline, James, for this particular newsletter that came out.
Which one are you talking about?
I'm talking about the one that was released 2 days ago on August 12th, with how Spotify started and killed Latin America podcast boom.
Oh, I did see this. Yeah.
How they killed Latin America. Well, I think they should talk to RSS.com. I think RSS.com is doing very well in Mexico. And isn't that part of, is that Latin America or not? Rob froze. Are you still here, Rob? Oh, no.
Yeah,
Okay. Oh, you were looking very still. Is Mexico considered part of Latin America?
I
have to ask the Book of Knowledge.
I think so. I certainly could be wrong.
Yes, Mexico is considered part of Latin America. Latin America as a region includes South America, Central America, Mexico, and the Caribbean islands where people speak Spanish or Portuguese. Mexico is the third largest country in Latin America. Okay, so I just wanted to make sure I wasn't being stupid here. So, RSS.com is doing very, very well in Mexico.
Yeah.
They have a conference down there. They've got a team down there. They're doing well. So Spotify has not killed podcasting in Latin America.
I don't even know what that means. I mean, killed it? So they don't have a podcast catalog in Latin America? Is that what
it said? The podcast boom came to Latin America when Spotify began commissioning hundreds of shows in 2019. Commissioning shows.
Oh, got it.
That wasn't a boom. Podcasting was in existence before 2019. The high volume strategy had its critics but helped build an industry, and Spotify won as much as 90% of the market. Not true. Now that Spotify has frozen funding for new shows, podcast producers are struggling to figure out what comes next.
Didn't they do this to some degree in the U.S. market too?
Well, they have done this in Asia too.
Yeah.
So
but it's budget cutback,
right? So
what it is.
Yeah.
It's
everyone. Okay. I want to just be a sailor for a second. I really do. Podcasters need to wake the beep up and understand that Spotify is not the beat and savor of beeping podcasting.
Right.
This is again going back to what we talked about, Rob, earlier.
Yeah.
They have nary a clue that there is an ecosystem, rich and vibrant, that is outside of beeping Spotify.
Right. Well, they do live in their own bubble, Todd. That is a true statement. And a lot of companies do.
Over the last 2 years, Spotify's backed away from investing in podcasts. The company wound down contracts across Spanish-speaking Latin America. More than a year after its release, the award-winning Mesures Valentine's is still looking for funding to make a second season. If your show is successful, you don't need funding. Go out and get an advertiser and have listener support like the rest of the world.
Right. Yeah.
Global fallout from Spotify's haphazard rush. I'm just like, quit giving them so much credit.
Yeah. Yeah. Todd, did you see this other derivative topic that fell out of the most powerful people in podcasting in the Hollywood Reporter article?
Yeah, go ahead.
Where people named in that list, right, were polled about listening to podcasts at over 1.5 speed, right? So that's where you listen to a podcast at faster than normal playback speed, which would be 1, right? I guess Julia Louis-Dreyfus from Seinfeld fame, and I guess a big podcaster now, doesn't know what 1.5x is.
Because she doesn't listen to podcasts.
Right. And Bill Simmons, who is a big sports podcaster for, I believe, in a deal with Spotify, says it's for sociopaths. It says, although 1.5 times speed is too slow, according to Ben Shapiro from the Daily Wire, who is definitely not a sociopath.
So you have Julia Louis-Dreyfus saying, I don't know what 1.5 is. Bill Simmons says it's for sociopaths. And Ben Shapiro, who obviously listens at 1.5 or more,
is too slow.
It's too slow. Now, the way he speaks, I'm not surprised.
I know. Yeah, exactly.
Now,
he's a machine gun
but
on the microphone.
But I will say this. If you're listening at 1.5, you're hurting yourself. You are hurting your brain.
You're also a fan of a Minnie Mouse.
You are making there is something to this.
Yeah, there is.
You might. Okay, this is Todd's opinion, so I might
save time in your life.
I might fall along in the Bill Simmons category. If you listen too fast, you might have psychiatric challenges.
Right. Or is listening too fast going to cause those psychopaths?
Right. Well, no, we're not going to say you can cause sociopath.
No, it's psychopath, which is a whole other.
Oh yeah, that's a whole different thing.
But psychopath.
I encourage you, if you feel stress or anxiety or anything like that in your life, and you're listening to podcasts at 1.5, stop and go to 1. You're missing the pauses. You're missing the nuances of speech. You're missing and with some of these podcasters now editing so tight that they don't leave even a millisecond of air in their podcast because they're using AI tools to remove every millisecond of air. You're going to go insane. So, in Todd's opinion, and jokingly, of course, but
I don't think that you could actually understand what Ben Shapiro says at 1.5 speed.
I don't think so either.
Because that's equivalent to probably going 3 times.
So, okay. So, listen to the show at speed. Enjoy life. I'll be honest with you. When I listen to a show at 1.5, I start feeling manic. I can't do it.
I would imagine your comprehension for most people would go down, but that's
my brain doesn't. Maybe I'm just old. My brain doesn't operate good at high speed. I got to think. Matter of fact, I listen to podcasts and sometimes I hit stop, and I think, and then I go doot doot doot. I go backwards 90 seconds.
Yeah,
and I listen again. Now I do that. Where do I stop and listen twice? On more than 2 shows. The marketing AI show, I listen. Sometimes I have to stop and beep back, and also the podcasting 2.0 show, because maybe I'm driving and did I miss some nuance there? And beep back. So because there's stuff that we miss, that we have to think about. So Yeah. We'll leave it at
Todd,
that.
did you see this announcement that came out just a couple days ago on Pod News as well? The launch of the bumper dashboard.
Yeah.
So I guess this is another analytical tool that say
And the question is, where are they getting their data?
I think they have a partnership with Spotify.
Well, okay.
Oh, no. Spotify
Combines
is
data from a different source, allows bumper clients to see numbers of verified listeners' total listen time. We have that at Blueberry already. We have your total listen time. Clients are listening for a segment of shows, not everything. So they can't get all this.
Yeah, isn't this platform, wasn't it started by
I don't
Dan
know.
Weiser?
I don't know who it was started by. People think it all looks pretty, but how are they getting listener time without log data? They're not tied in to getting,
Well, that goes back to the earlier concerns
Yeah.
Around the whole getting player data.
Right.
So there is no aggregator like we've talked about many years. There's no like middleman aggregator of listener data, right? That these big platforms are willing to share.
Blueberry doesn't share. Well, how we do it is if you as a podcaster want your Blueberry stats somewhere else, we have an API that you have to authenticate your account, username, password with that third party to be able to pull data out of Blueberry to go to a third party service. So we do have an API. We have a huge number of, I think, close to 300 different companies and services that are connected to our API, but every account has to be authenticated to pull data out of Blueberry stats. And they can't get everything. We do have an advanced API that is available for premium that gets them everything, but we don't let them have the whole enchilada for free.
Mm-hmm.
The
so
basics.
I see in this
go ahead.
new app, this new what's it called? The bumper dashboard. It does look like it's getting access to Apple, Spotify, and YouTube data. And
They must be scraping it then.
It's looking at things like retention. So this would be like audience retention data.
If they're getting that through scraping, Apple, you guys, maybe this is the reason why there's issues logging in. Maybe they're trying to stop these scrapers from scraping.
Well,
because that's the only way they're getting it is to scrape it. There's no API at Apple to pull this data out unless there's something I don't know about.
Yeah, it looks like it's interesting that James did an analysis on his podcasts based on the OP3 version of his show, I guess, or something.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not quite exactly sure all the details here, but it does compare Apple, Spotify, and YouTube. And it does show that the path of retention for an audio podcast on YouTube basically falls off like a cliff.
Yeah.
Right at the beginning, and it remains extremely low, where the Apple and Spotify versions of the show maintain good audio listener retention
according to
throughout the
Spotify.
episode. Well, according to this chart.
Yeah. Who knows? But
So
they're scraping. They have to be scraping from the web.
Well, and if you think about it with YouTube, if this data is correct, and this is tracking audio consumption, YouTube is a video platform.
Right.
So I think it would be simple to assume that if you're primarily consuming audio on YouTube, you're not going to have a lot of retention.
I wouldn't think so. Hey, so let's talk a little bit about this situation with Libsyn and Gibbons leaving.
Oh, yeah. John Gibbons leaving. Yeah.
So they've been pretty crickets over there. And
there's been a lot of changes as of late over there. The team is from what I hear, is dramatically smaller than it was.
What I had, again, I have no information to confirm this. I have not talked to Dave. Didn't say anything when we talked to Dave. So, I'm just, scuttlebutt. For those of you who don't know what scuttlebutt means, is rumors. Rumors is they downsized a bunch of people because there was potentially an acquisition happening and they were trying to get costs down on labor to make the numbers look better, and the acquisition failed. That was a rumor that was in the spring.
Well, they did sell Pair Networks.
So, yeah, they sold Pair.
Mm-hmm.
And so if I remember correctly, John holds a lot of Libsyn stock.
I don't know that's how much truth there is to that.
I don't know. Of course, the stock right now is worth toilet paper.
Well, Brad, the former CEO, had a lot of stock.
Oh, maybe it's Brad. So, it's interesting that he pulled the plug.
Well, also a lot of the two founders of AdvertiseCast have left the company now.
So,
yeah.
and so we know now, is this going to allow Lori to come back? Because my understanding, she didn't go voluntarily. So,
well, yeah. I don't know that we know that for sure. But I do know that there is significant restructuring going on over there. And I do know that a lot of the team that was aligned with Dave Hanley and Trevor, who were the two co-founders of AdvertiseCast, a lot of the team that they brought into the company with them, with AdvertiseCast, that acquisition, a lot of those guys have left.
So
to start up their own advertising sales company, which I'm sure is going to be a big drain on the advertisers that are currently with Libsyn ads.
With the chaos Libsyn's had with getting Libsyn 5 out and getting the pairing of features.
Yeah. Feature parity.
Parity. Yeah. What are they going to put Rob in charge? Rob's going to be the new CEO?
Well, I don't know about that. So,
it's an interesting.
Rob
has stock.
I would say right at this moment, Rob is probably the most senior person at the company. That says anything. I don't know. I mean, more specifically,
I think Rob is on the other side of life. I don't think he'd want to come in there and there would be
well
stranger things have happened.
Yeah, I did talk to Rob just in the last week or
so. Okay.
But he's hunkering down. He's got a lot of work on his plate. I do know that. So,
yeah. But
I understand he's fully on board and moving forward with the company.
Well, I'm sure, he has a reason to make, I know Rob holds stock. So Rob has a vested interest in making sure the company succeeds, so.
Yeah, I used to have stock too, but I sold out.
You sold it before it went to pink sheets?
Yeah, well, I don't know I think it's always been somewhat in pink sheets, but yeah, I do think that the company is restructuring right now, and I do think that they're maybe heading back to a structure that's more like what it was before the big activist takeover.
Well, I'm going to tell you,
actually put Brad into power.
It's been 10 years of craziness. If you think about the Chinese reverse acquisition, all that insanity.
That's completely.
I know that's
completely behind them.
I know, but it's just one series of chaos.
Oh, I know.
It's surprising a company's been able to operate as it has, and I don't know how, if they're bleeding customers. Again, I don't know. I know what we see come over, what we see come over is mostly because of podcasting 2.0.
I'm not surprised.
That's the main reason people come to us. But I'm sure they're losing to Megaphone and all these other entities. There's a chart somewhere that shows the migration path of people, and so that's publicly. There's a link to that somewhere on James's site. So
yeah, right.
It's not like that's a secret. But
the truth is those numbers are generally pretty small.
They're small. They're not. It's not like we get 100. I wish. Onesie
right.
twosies. Yeah.
But the last time I saw that chart, I'm not sure where it is right now to click on. But
I don't know either.
I can probably look on his website.
We're already 90 minutes here, Rob. So
we are.
Yeah,
okay.
We made it.
But that chart does a good job of kind of showing where people are moving to, and it does look like there's a lot of traffic moving over to Spotify for podcasters.
Yeah. Well, one thing for sure, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to Podcast Movement next week. And I am sure there's going to be a few beers at the bar. And I am sure there will be some off-the-record conversations that Rob and I will not be able to share when we come back. But if you want to be a fly on the wall, and you're going to be at Podcast Movement, the best place to hear the scuttlebutt of what's going on is at the bar or outside of session rooms or one-on-ones with people. So you want to learn the rumors, what is the magazine that is National Enquirer? If you want to know the National Enquirer news of podcasting. My camera's a little off focus. I can see it across, not completely square. I can see it across the top of my head.
Yeah.
Look sideways. Another thing I got to fix. Okay.
All right. Well,
we're back here in this studio.
Back to normal on Zoom. So we're not doing it on StreamYard anymore.
Yeah. And I do have some lower thirds, but I am going to improve those so that we all have lower thirds. So I'll get those mocked up. But yeah, I don't have to. It's amazing. I'm not putting any miles on my car, Rob. It just sits in the garage. I have my food delivered. I have no reason to leave the compound here. So,
unless you want to go to the grocery store or do something.
But
like I suppose you can order that, have it delivered if you want.
Yeah, I can. But I am getting ready to have construction done. We're going to put up. I'm adding security. Let's put it this way. We got to be able to make sure that the loft in the studio is just one level more higher in security here. So, I had pretty heavy security at the last place, and I want the same level of security.
Right.
There's security here with a big German Shepherd that will bite you. And let's put it this way. This is the country in America, so it's not a good idea to open anyone's door because you might be met by a shotgun if you do.
Wow. Okay. Boom.
Well, that's you can do that in the country because people. The only time people open the door is either the fire department come to put a fire out, or the police responding to a shooting, or a burglar.
Oh, quick, Todd. I saw that there was a podcast that was listed in Pod News called Sleepy. That is a podcast that's entirely generated by AI.
Plenty of those out there. I know of 4 or 5.
Oh, you do?
Yeah,
okay.
Not in their voice spoken, in the voice of the podcaster.
Yeah.
And they are completely AI. And people don't know it. It's not disclosed. I think it's wrong. I think it should be. Disclosed completely. Okay, I'm Todd at blueberry.com, geeknews at gmail.com, at geeknews on X, at geeknews.chat on Mastodon. Of course, don't forget about the New Media Show, newmediashow.com. Come over to there and follow via your favorite podcasting app. we'll get the live audio fix for next week. I'm sure it's just one knob that needs to be turned on a channel output. We'll get that going so you guys can hear Rob on the live audio stream. Rob?
Yeah, I can be found on X as well, x.com/Rob Greenlee. And you can send me an email if you want. robgreenlee@gmail.com will come to me as well. And I can be found on all of the social media platforms as well under my name. And if you want to go to my YouTube channel, that's at Rob Greenlee as well. So if you're going to Podcast Movement, I would be interested in, meeting up with you or maybe catching up somewhere or something like that. I'm not going to be affiliated with any particular booth, so I'm going to be an entire free agent for the first time at Podcast Movement. So
Rob might need a job, so anybody's hiring, hook him up there at Podcast Movement.
Right.
What podcast hosting company haven't you worked for? Buzzsprout. You haven't worked for them yet, so
I haven't worked for Buzzsprout. No, I haven't, or any Spotify related hosting platform or Sirius XM.
Rob, if you go to work for Megaphone, where the show's done.
Okay, fair enough.
Yeah, don't go work for the enemy.
Right. Okay.
And really, that's unfair to the Megaphone folks, but you're all owned by Spotify. So, you just get included because of such.
But Todd, they're the #1 podcast platform.
Yeah, whatever.
Now, did you know that?
Yeah, whatever.
But that's a former honor that was
that's supposed to be YouTube now, Rob.
And it's formerly known as iHeart, right?
I think I said YouTube for the first time the whole show. We made it almost to the end. Okay, everyone, thanks for being here. And we will not see us next week. So the following week we'll be back here. And
we're not doing it on stage live media show at Podcast Movement either.
No, so. We don't. We've been how should we say? We're not there. We didn't even ask. We didn't even ask.
I don't think there's any live performances of podcasts at Podcast Movement this year.
Don't think so either. Okay, we'll see everybody in 2 weeks. Take care. Thanks.
All right.